for it, man. I can't do it. I'm too tall for it. All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. We continue to broadcast live from Super Bowl 60 Radio Row in San Francisco. Pleased to be joined by Mike Smith, Falcons head coach from 2008 to 2014. Winningest coach in Atlanta Falcons franchise history. He's here with X-Tech, and we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But, Coach, thanks so much for coming. I'm sure you're not, hating the fact that people still probably call you Coach, right? I mean, come on.
No. Hey, once a coach, always a coach.
Always a coach.
Yep. Hey, I've been called a lot worse. Running off after a bad game. Hey, dumbass. So
great. Yep. Well, glad to have you here. Let's talk about the game coming up on Sunday. You have Seattle and New England, and I think it's we're in the Midwest. So as Chiefs fans, we get a little spoiled seeing the Chiefs be at the Super Bowl every single year. I mean, it's just a thing. It happens. But this year, it's different. You have New England and Seattle. I think it's so unique because you have Mike Vrabel, who's been able to just hop on in and just lead his team to a Super Bowl appearance. And you look at Seattle, kind of a similar thing, too. I don't think anyone really knew what to expect with Seattle. I don't think anyone would have predicted this in a million years. But here we are, New England and Seattle. What stands out about this game coming up on Sunday?
Well, they're two very well-coached football teams, and you're looking at a second-year coach and a first-year coach that are playing in the Super Bowl. So they've done a great job in their organizations about putting a roster together. Mm-hmm. That's first and foremost, and I think from top to bottom, their rosters are very strong. And then you also have, I think, in Seattle, Mike Macdonald is probably one of the smartest and defensive minds in the game right now. It just amazes me to watch his defenses perform because they are very multiple and they're able to give different looks, but he's done a great job where they understand it in the way that he teaches it and the way that he presents it. They're not having big plays against them, not giving up explosive plays. They are strong from the front all the way back to the back end. And then you've got on the other side of the ball, you got Sam Darnold, who has really had a choppy year, but a really good playoffs. And if he continues to play like that and takes care of the football, that's why I personally feel like that the Seahawks are the team to beat.
What about the resurrection of Sam Darnold? I don't think that's a stretch saying resurrection because I think it's very, very accurate, right? Because you have a guy who has bounced around and now he ends up in a system like here in Seattle. But of course, he went to Minnesota. We had Jeff Garcia on it, and Jeff was like, "Well, don't look at San Francisco and think that didn't play a factor too." And I thought, you know what? That's kind of smart too, because Shanahan probably got him going as well, and maybe giving him confidence. So, how about the resurrection of Sam Darnold? Obviously, he found himself a spot that made him believe again. And as a head coach, it's leadership wise, right? You're trying to motivate guys and get them to the right spot, get them to play at the highest of levels. And there's no doubt that Sam Darnold's been able to do that over the last couple of years.
It is, and it happens often in our league, in the NFL. The players that get drafted high and the expectations are through the roof take some time to develop. And there's no one thing that you can put your finger on and say, this is why he didn't develop. But Sam has developed, and sometimes it's not necessarily what team he's on. It's who else is in that building. And sometimes teams have to make decisions about, am I going to keep this guy or that guy? And I think that happened a couple of times for Sam. And he has really turned it on this season. And he really had a good season there in Minneapolis. I promise you, the people in Minneapolis are probably wishing that he stayed, and they made a different decision when they let him go. And it takes, for some guys, it just takes time to develop and get with the right system, the right coaches, and it all and the right guys around him. But he's had a great playoff run. He's been, he's had some choppy games, but every quarterback in the NFL is going to have choppy games. Some more than others, but I really, I've been impressed the way that he's played on the offensive side, moving the chains, not throwing interceptions, taking care of the football, because that's what this weekend it's going to come down to explosive plays and turnovers. The ones that, if you can create explosive plays and you keep possession of the football, you've got a better chance of winning the game.
100%. I know everyone gets tired of it. Oh, it's coach speak. Oh no, when you have two teams that are pretty darn good, turnovers tend to be a pretty big factor. Just look at the playoffs. See what happened in some of those games. Ask why the Texans are currently sitting home on the rear ends rather than being, here in San Francisco playing for a Super Bowl. How about the job that Mike Vrabel has done?
Oh gosh, yeah. The thing that if you look back through history and why guys are successful as head coaches, you talk about leadership skills. That's a point that you have to have. But I think the most important thing about when you get at the NFL level, the most important thing about coaches and players is being authentic. And Mike Vrabel is about as authentic. Mike played in the league. He hasn't changed from when he was a player. He's very authentic. He has authenticity. He loves the game of football, the way that he coaches it, the way that he works with the team. He's not a guy that's always going to be warm and fuzzy, but they love him because he's authentic. They know what you get every single day, and I think that's why he's been so successful.
Yeah. Now, Chiefs aren't here. It's a heartbreaker. What went wrong with Kansas City from your perspective as a coach? What went wrong?
Well,
or did anything go wrong, or is it just other teams got better? That's also an argument.
Yes, I think that other teams have gotten better. It's very, very difficult. The NFL is designed for teams to be on equal footing. And with the salary cap and the way that you have to adjust your roster, eventually it's going to catch up with you. If you're in, and I think that's something that happens. You have to make decisions, and unfortunately, with the salary cap, they're financial decisions on where are you spending your money and how are you spending your money. And those decisions aren't only going to affect this year, but they're going to affect 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. And at some point in time, teams have to reset if they're really going all in. And that's what Kansas City has been doing for the last 5 years. They've been all in, and they keep moving money around with the quarterback and using him as the bank and everything. And the NFL wants there to be parity. They want it to be 4 good teams every year at the top, 4 bad teams at the bottom, and 24 teams in the middle that are just churning.
Mm-hmm.
And they get it. And that's why everybody loves the NFL. And Kansas City, will they come back? Yeah, they're going to have to make some changes. They're going to have to adjust. They're going to have to make adjustments with the roster. They've had a hell of a run. There's no doubt about it. But it's time for them to have a little bit of a reset. It'll be interesting to see how they do it, because there's a couple ways you can do it.
I was going to ask what because everyone is just so curious about where do they start. That's always my question. Where do you start? Because running back wise, you haven't had much of a rushing attack over these last couple of years. Wide receiver wise, I think you have guys who are all very similar, and they're all similar build, all based on speed, but maybe guys that haven't been able to break away from the coverage of defenders that are blocking them. And then you go on the defensive side of the ball, lack of pass rush up front. Steve Spagnuolo is all about blitzing, hitting on blitzes. And now everyone's wondering, well, how do you go about retooling? How do you do that? Because they trade away Tyreek Hill. They got 5 draft picks. That's great. Trent McDuffie and Chris Jones aren't going to give you 5 draft picks. I'm just, spoiler alert, they're not going to give you 5 draft picks, just the way it's going to go. But how does Kansas City go about trying to retool to keep the window open to win a Super Bowl championship?
Well, the way that you do it for the first 3 or 4 years is especially when you have a quarterback, he becomes the bank. and you keep redoing his contract, and it's been done 3 or 4 times so that they can go and fill in where they think they need. And it's a quarterback driven league. We all know that. But if it's a quarterback driven league, we need to have targets that aren't all the same. We need to be different. And then you got to figure out how to affect the quarterback and on the defensive side, and you got to be able to do it without blitzing. You got to have that stud guy that's going to take, a chipper or 2 blockers. And I think those are the things that are prevalent in the NFL right now. That's the thing that's vogue. And Kansas City, that they're set at quarterback for a while. It's just a matter now of, can you continue to have him be where you're banking all your other, you're putting, you keep deferring money and giving it into bonus money, and eventually you're going to have a reset. It's just a matter of when do they say it's time to do it, and that usually comes from an observation above the head coach. Usually comes from the owner, because he's the one that is writing the checks.
Eric Bieniemy's back as the offensive coordinator. Patrick Mahomes has said, hey, we need accountability. Eric Bieniemy has that reputation. I'm sure you know that through the coaching circles that you're a part of. EB coming back, is that really going to make that huge of a difference? And how big is it to have a guy who's known as the accountability guy? Because I look at Eric Bieniemy, and I'm hopeful. You see all the mistakes that were made throughout the course of the year. Jawan Taylor with his situation at right tackle. You have Chris Jones lining up in the neutral zone. You have all these penalties take place. Well, Eric Bieniemy is known as a fiery guy, not afraid to call people out. How big of a deal is that for Kansas City to have him back?
Well, obviously they think it's going to be a big move to bring him back, and you've got to be accountable. First of all players have to be accountable to themselves. You made the decision to do what you did, and you need to have individual accountability, and then it needs to go to the position group, and then it grows throughout the organization. And to me, it's important to nip that in the butt right now if you can, and not let it grow. And I think that's what happens is it slowly creeps in, and then it becomes your identity. And when it becomes your identity, you don't have a chance to be successful. So you need to make changes, and that's, I'm sure, why they brought Eric back. And Coach Bieniemy, he's fiery now. He tells it how it is. He can talk to the guys. He's a former player. I think that gives him credibility, and that credibility, I think, will show up on the field, that this is the way it needs to be done, and this is why it needs to be done that way.
All right, you're here with X-Tech. Let's talk about X-Tech. AI, they have this X-Tech's digital bot powered by AI. X-Tech taking 14 years of data, and I just think this is a cool thing, and I'm sure you're probably like, this is amazing. So tell me about X-Tech.
Yeah, well, I've been involved with them for about 12 years. Saw what these guys were doing, the way that they protect the players, the design, and this bot that they've got now for the parents, it's unbelievable. I mean, you can go online, you take the measurements, you hold up your laptop and take the measurements, and when in a short time you'll have the pads delivered. And that's what we need to do. Player safety, we talk about player safety at the college level, especially in the NFL. We need to be focused on the young players that are just starting, and we need to be focused on the moms and dads that are making those decisions. And this has been a journey for X-Tech, and it's been a fun journey to watch. The design that they've combined with the performance it's unbelievable, and it's the number one pad in the NFL. We want it to be the number one pad in high school football, because there's a lot more players, and we're going to keep our next generation safer if we wear that. But in the NFL, in the game, we're going to have a bunch of guys. Sam Darnold wears it this weekend. Leonard Williams wears it. Julian Love, Christian Gonzalez on the other side, Travian Henderson. So those guys are wearing our pads, and they're wearing them because they're the number one pad in the NFL. Matthew Stafford's worn them for years, and I'm excited about the new stuff. And young players, talk to your mom and dad. Go and check it out. Check out the bot on at XTech Pads on Instagram or xtechpads.com.
Love it.
Yeah.
Coach, appreciate you being here. Enjoy the rest of Super Bowl Radio Row.
All right. Thank you.